said this, that seems important. But then two, it's like this generalized, I know in general I'm always going to try and do this thing. As opposed to when it's like this, I'll do this, and it's like this, I'll do this, and it's like this, I'll do this. It's just like in general, I will think of, oh, this means I should substitute. And I'll substitute. And if something weird happens, I'll deal with it.
Right, it's transferable. Other thing is so much more independent practice in your class now.
Mm-hmm.
Double in some cases. Kids are doing independent practice much faster into the period than before and for longer periods of time.
Yes.
Awesome. So today I want to dive into this exit ticket. And so I didn't have a standard for this. I did look back and talk and it wasn't there. So please make sure you're copying and pasting
Wait, it
the
is?
standard.
No?
No, it's not for last Monday.
Oh, I thought I put in every single one. Oh, it's do you know how chalk has the added standards? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Can't see it. I know what you're talking about. It'll be pinged right here.
Oh man, I thought I put them all
That's
in.
okay.
I'm sorry.
Next time, make sure it's there. But let's zoom into this exit ticket regardless. And I want you to, and I know we talked about this before, I believe we had a co-planning meeting about it. Write down for this exit ticket all the things kids need to know, be able to do, and then I added a whammy here to do at the very end. What do they have to be able to articulate?
Mm-hmm. That is my best stab at that.
Okay, so I want to, you're great at the procedural. Let me read through this really quick. That is what I have to add. Talk me through, what did you write for the no, and then what did you write for articulate?
Then you know
I'm going to look at what I wrote and see if we match up.
Then you know what each of the variables means when their calculator spits that out. A is the slope, B is the y-intercept, R is the correlation. They need to know that slope is how much y changes when x increases by 1, and whatever the units are. They need to know correlation is a number between -1 and 1, and the closer it is to either one of those, the stronger the relationship. That's all I have for now.
Do they need to know that for the standard, but do they need to know that for this exit to get the correlation one?
Yeah,
In order
because,
to know that E is not the correct answer, correct?
yeah, and to know that B is not the correct answer.
Okay. And then what did you say that students need to be able to articulate?
That they need to be able to put the slope in context. Like the slope means when the x units increase by 1, y will increase by the slope,
Which is what?
0.42.
Great. So in the context of this problem, what's
So in the context of this problem, it would be like, when the number of hours watching TV increases by 1, GPA will decrease by 0.428.
Great, and how does this connect to the question on the end of module?
This is like almost the exact same question in a different context with different numbers, obviously. I think on the end of module, it's a positive correlation, but it's like the same idea of all the choices confuse correlation and slope.
Great.
So it's differentiating which one means which.
Great, and on the end of module, what is a difference between this question and the question on the end of module?
Different context, and I think on the end of module, the correct answer is not the one about the slope. The correct answer is interpreting the correlation correctly.
And I might be remembering wrong, but is the third question, the end of module, is it multiple choice, or it is? Okay, all right, I thought it was they had to write it. Okay, good to know. All right, so I selected.
It used to be they had to write it, they changed it.
Okay.
So I changed it.
Okay, good to know. So I didn't have your exemplar here in chalk.
You did or didn't?
Did not. I know that you did one because this was something we did co-planning in. Just make sure.
I think you're just not scanning it.
When you're doing these things, though, you're going to have to redo all of this work next year. Scan them, scan them, scan them. I selected Elijah as an exemplar though, and I want to zoom in to question 1. So what are the keys to Elijah's answer for
I
number
love
1?
that Elijah wrote down A, B, and R. Wrote those down and then substituted them in correctly, just y equals x plus b.
Great. And so how does Elijah's work to number 1 connect to number 3?
She's able to differentiate between R and A because she's seeing like, hey, those are two different things, and I can see where these two numbers they're pulling from come out at.
Great. So how does Elijah's exit ticket demonstrate not just procedural fluency, but also conceptual mastery?
She's differentiating between the slope and the correlation on number 1 and on number 3 because she's pulled those out separately and is like shown, I know that's the slope and I know that is about correlation.
Great. So let's take a look at these 2's. I want you to write in there, what is the gap between these 2's and Elijah's?
Yeah, so I'm guessing that this is the stack in general. Confused
Yeah,
correlation,
by the
slope,
way, I'm
confused
sorry in
correlation,
advance,
slope.
they're not separated by period anymore, I separated them by error.
Don't worry about it.
Okay,
Yeah, all of these, I'm sure of it because all the distractors are on the same thing anyway. It's just confusing slope and correlation of which one means which.
but look at the work. What is missing?
Um,
You identified,
Like pulling out A, B, and R. Yeah. Didn't even do it. Some of them pulled out A and B but not R. Some of them pulled out R but not A and B. So I'm thinking on like thinking stuff, like I'm gonna write down A is this, B is this, R is this, or the slope is this, the y-intercept is this, the correlation is this would be even better, like even
I don't even
Elijah's.
think that you need to pull it out, I think that Elijah could tell them.
Right.
So,
But even better would be like, write down the slope is, the y-intercept is, the correlation is, instead of A, B, and R. So you don't have to like make that jump, you just, this is the slope, so when it says the correlation is negative 0.42, you can know the slope is negative 0.42 and cross that off.
So let's stamp that, what's the highest leverage gap to close right now?
Label each of these variables with what they are in question 1 as soon as you plug it into your calculator. And then eliminate distractors.
Not
based
necessarily
on that.
question 1, how can we make that more transferable?
Oh, just in general, like when you plug in a list, write down A, B, and R.
Right, when you're writing an equation, pull out the variables.
Yeah.
Great, so the key student error and biggest conceptual error is that students are not identifying A, B, and R, and therefore cannot interpret that when they need to draw a conclusion. What you already said is the thing that students need to be able to articulate.
Right, that
at
is
the
the
end.
big, and that is the big lever for their final as well.
Right, and so specifically in this case, the students, because they didn't pull out ABR, could not predict that for 1 hour watching TV, their GPA decreased. Okay. What was it, 0.428 or? Great. So we've been working a lot on modeling thinking skills, and we already talked about this and you had a lot of results, but I think this is a great opportunity for kids to show what they know. I think it's a great opportunity for guided discourse. So,
what would that look like?
Great question, I'm gonna model it for you. So I'm gonna model what I would do, and what I want you to write down is the questions I ask. Okay, the questions I ask. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, I looked at your exit tickets from last Monday, and I'm really excited about this stuff. It's, I saw some thoughtful work. I pulled out Elijah specifically as an exemplar, and I want you all to zoom in on number 1. Now I picked this as an exemplar. Kristan, can you tell me what are the keys to Elijah's answer for number 1? Can you answer Kristan? Kristan, what are the keys to Elijah's answer for number 1?
She wrote down all the variables and plugged it in.
Okay, Elijah, can you stamp that for us? What exactly did you do here? Can you answer Elijah?
Oh,
You're
sorry.
gonna be multiple students.
I saw the slope was negative 0.42 and the y-intercept was 3.29, the correlation was negative 0.94, so I wrote that down. And then I plugged in the slope and y-intercept to the equation.
Great. Let's see. Jamarco, can you re-articulate that? Say that again for us.
So she wrote down all the numbers for each thing and plugged them into the equation.
Kristan, what does he mean by all the numbers?
Each slope, y-intercept, and correlation.
Great. Okay. So, what do A, B, and R stand for?
Slope, y-intercept, and correlation.
Great. All right. Now, let's see. I'm wanting to know, how did number 1 connect to number 3, Nija?
So you have to know that the correlation is negative 0.94 and the slope is negative 0.428. So I guess you could just mark off the ones that don't have that.
Okay. Cherish, let's build on that. Put it all together. How do we use this information to draw a conclusion?
Well, so like letter choice E says the correlation is negative 0.42, but that's not the correlation, that's the slope.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like narrow down which ones correctly name the slope is this or the correlation is that. And then I know slope means change in x and y, and correlation is about the strength of the relationship. So find the one that was true.
Great. Okay, Andres, put it all together. How does 1 inform 3?
You have to use those numbers for 3.
Okay, I picked a very low, so remember the low. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
So let's break out of that role play. What are the questions that I asked?
Well, first of all, like the patterns of questions you asked were like always medium, high, low.
Great, why?
You get the medium student to see if they can like pull it out,
Mhm.
high student stamps it, low student re-articulates.
Mm-hmm.
The questions you asked were basically like, hey, what are the keys to this? Hey, re-articulate that. Hey, stamp that, high kid, re-articulate from a low student. then you connect it, like how does this connect to number 3? Like why do I need to pull this out to get number 3 right? And then you get the same like question.
Great,
Medium,
so
high,
I
low.
love that you pulled out the medium, high, low. Let's stamp. There are 3 questions I asked for my discourse, and I want to make sure you walk away with these 3 questions because I'm about to make you practice. So what are the 3 questions I asked about the work?
What are the keys to Elijah's answer for number 1? What do A, B, and R stand for?
Great.
How does number 1 connect to number 3?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Simple. Right when I was first planning this meeting, I was like, what questions do we ask? And it's like, no. Just ask the basic.
I almost wonder, is there value? I suspect that there might be a gap in interpreting slope. Like, as x increases by 1, y increases by the slope. I
think that we're not there yet. I think we focus on just pulling out the variables for now.
Okay.
Because we're making inferences, because we don't even know if they can pull it out correctly yet.
Right. Right.
So once we have the exit, you're reteaching this on Thursday?
Yeah.
So once we have the exit tickets, or whenever you make a new question for this, then we'll be able to know. Like, because you will have explicitly named them, like you need to be pulling these out, and then we'll be able to see if that's an error. But for now, I would hold off on that and focus in on the pulling out the A, B, and R. All right, so practice. Show me, what does it sound like in your class on Thursday?
Cool. So, guys, I'm really pumped about this exit ticket. Like, overall, our average was really high, but on average, our median was like a 67. So we had a lot of people just missing 1 or sometimes 2 questions. What I want to do is zoom in on Elijah, who I think was an exemplar for this. She did exactly what we did, and some of her work really shows me she has a deep understanding. Let me hear from Kenya. What are the keys to Elijah's work on number 1?
She pulled out A, B, and R, and then she wrote an equation.
Okay, and Destin, can you stamp that? Like, what do you see that Elijah did in general?
She pulled out the A and was careful also to note that it was negative, and so that tells us that the slope is going to be negative. She identified the B, and then for the R, she put that there, and she clearly labeled it too, so that way she could possibly use it later, because when you put that into an equation, sometimes you might forget like what the A, B, and R are.
Cool. So I want to hear Joseph. Can you just re-articulate what Dustin is saying? What should we do every time when we are asked to write an equation given a table?
Good that you said every time we are asked to write an equation, because they're going to have to write equations in other scenarios, not just involving this, even if you think back to systems equations. Okay, back in character. I'm Joseph. What they did was they pulled out all the variables in the equation. The A and the B and the R are the variables this time.
So I want to know, looking at number 1, there's one thing Elijah could have done better. She wrote A equals this, B equals this, R equals this. What do A, B, and R stand for, Kristan?
A stands for slope, R stands for regression, B I don't remember.
Okay. R does not stand for regression. Fix his thinking there. It's hard not seeing students. High student in my mind. Yeah. Cherish. Thanks. Fix his mistake and help him with B. R does not stand for regression.
So I'm Cherish and I'm saying the right answer. I forgot what
R stands for correlation.
Yes. And B stands for regression.
Y-intercept.
Y-intercept. Okay, I don't know what I'm talking about. It's fine.
Thanks, Cherish. Stamp that for me. Instead of writing A, B, and R, what should we write when we pull out these variables?
I don't think instead of. I think they could write in addition to. I wouldn't say instead of.
On addition to writing A equals this, B equals this, R equals this, I want you guys to label these with what they stand for. So we're going to label them as Monte.
A is slope, B is y-intercept, R is coefficient.
Correlation. Nice job. Cool. So now that we've pulled out our slope, y-intercept, and correlation, how does that connect to getting the right answer for number 3? Let's hear from Malachi.
Just like if I had only written this, like not the A, B, and R, I would be going back and trying to think of too many things at once. Like what was that negative 0.428 stand for? What does this stand for? In order to think about which one of these multiple choice matched that. So by pulling out A, B, and R, it's